Let's go to Senator Bill Stanley, Republican, District 20. That is the Franklin area of Virginia. He is third in command in the state Senate and one of the toughest guys in there, one of the best lawyers in there, and one of my good friends, and we affectionately call him Uncle Bill. Senator Stanley, great to have you with us, sir.
Good to be with you, John, although the timing may be off. You're so fired up. Do you want me to call you back in 15 minutes?
No, I'm good. I have to get fired up for you because, you're one of the premier guests on our show. When we tweet out that you're coming on, I mean, we get a lot of listeners because everybody wants to hear what you have to say because they know that you carry the flame of the beacon of truth.
You're very kind, man.
Listen, we've got a couple of very critical things to get to today. Before I do that, as you know, myself, the Fräulein, my wife Ann, and Councilman Robert Ike, we are running for national delegate in the 4th District. That convention will be decided in May 21st in Wakefield. And I know that you are the chairman of the Ted Cruz for President campaign in Virginia. Now, that campaign is suspended, and in the spirit of unity and coming together, myself, Robert Ike, and Ann, our official Donald Trump for President ticket, 2016 from the 4th District. We would love to get your endorsement, Senator Stanley.
Well, John, I stand here today after a ponderful moment and have thought this through, and certainly have gotten to know you and your wife Ann, your beautiful wife Ann, and over the years, and certainly I stand here ready to endorse Ann.
Well, thanks, Bill. You know what? You're right there with Ben Tribbett, who says Ann is going to rout the convention, and I'm going to finish 7th. So you're right there.
All jokes aside, and no joking about Ann, but certainly I think this is an important convention. I am very excited to see all the excitement within the party of people who are actually running and wanting to go and be a national delegate. I have firmly, and have never ran for delegate, but I firmly believe that it's the grassroots, it's the people that volunteer rather than the elected officials that should always run for these positions and have them. They should be the ones that make the decisions when you go to a national convention like this one in Ohio coming up in June. And so I think, and I believe seriously after listening to you a long time, that the people in the 4th Congressional District will be very well served by electing your ticket, and specifically yourself, John, and your beautiful wife, Ann, and Robert Ike. So today I stand ready to fully endorse you three. I wish you all the best, and I would ask all my friends in the 4th District who may be listening today to stand behind this ticket. I think what you can count on is that the regular folk, the party regulars, the people that stand up and do the heavy lifting and the heavy work can know that their voice is being heard, and they will have an ear as well in the convention, and that will be you, that will tell them if any shenanigans, as you like to call them, are going on. So I fully endorse you three. I'm excited about your campaign and your candidacy. I think it's a wonderful thing. I hope all three of you are elected. If Ann, by chance, is elected and you're not, which I hope is not what's going to happen, Ann's going to need somebody carrying her luggage and taking care of her, so you can go as well. But I think all three of you are a great ticket, and I really, really want to see you guys win, and I hope that happens there at that upcoming convention in the 4th District.
Well, Senator Stanley, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate all you do also, and especially coming from the chairman of the Ted Cruz campaign, now suspended in Virginia. I know how you guys you all have worked on that, and I really appreciate the kind words. And in the spirit of us coming together, thank you, sir. I appreciate it, and I'm certainly honored to have your endorsement. Thank you.
Well, John, it's an honor to endorse you. I don't give away my endorsements very lightly, so certainly I've thought about this one. But when you mentioned something which I think is important, having been the Virginia and being still the Virginia chairman for the Cruz campaign for president, we've got in our party right now, is it Cruz, is it Kasich, is it Trump, and we see with the people as they speak through each primary as we're going through the Midwest and heading out to California at the last, that the momentum has been with the Trump campaign. Certainly, ultimately, we have to, and I think what we're seeing now is that there are a lot of people who are upset. There are a lot of people who are upset for various reasons. They're upset maybe because their candidate didn't win. And I am even, hearing from my friends that they will never vote for Trump if he's the nominee. I was hearing from people that said they would never vote for Cruz if he was the nominee. A non-vote like that is a vote for Hillary Clinton. And I ask everyone who is in the listening area right now and listening to this that when we're going through this discussion, this is a process of healing and coming back together, that we realize what the alternative is. And that is, if Hillary Clinton is elected, we can say goodbye to rational, strict constructionalists of the Constitution sitting on the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. You can imagine what she's going to do on a national level, seeing what her friend Terry McAuliffe did at the local level with regard to restoration of violent felons' rights without examination and giving back their voting rights and creating a block for them. Mass illegal immigration coming across the border, tearing down of the foundations of the values of this country and replacing them with ones that they insist, those elites, those liberal elites insist that we must adhere to, rather than allowing people to make choices for themselves. The stakes are too high. Our economy has not grown. We need to put people back to work. The policies of Barack Obama have not worked, and they will be continued in a Clinton presidency. And John, back in 1994, I was one of the lawyers that represented Paula Jones against Bill Clinton all the way to the United States Supreme Court, showed that a president is not above the law and can be sued for his private acts. But this is my stickler. You elect Hillary Clinton, you're putting Bill Clinton back in the White House. That's enough for me.
I couldn't agree more, and I appreciate those words. There's a grieving process, and I was one of the people that said if any of those candidates were nominated, I would be right there with them, because I backed so many losers in the nominating process, dating back to Congressman Ashbrook, who ran against Richard Nixon in New Hampshire in '72. That's how far I go back.
Wow.
So I'm about 0 for 25, other than Reagan in 1980. So I understand. But look, at the end of the day, I am from the New York, New Jersey area. When I grew up, when I was a young man, Ed Koch was our mayor, and I'm a big fan of his. And he used to have this saying, and I'll never forget it. I was in my 20s when he was a mayor, and he used to say, if you agree with me 80% of the time, volunteer for my campaign and send me a check. If you agree with me 100% of the time, see a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And that's a famous quote. And look, you're not going to agree with everybody 100% of the time. And so if you get there 80%, you're in good shape. Senator Republicans very upset over Terry McAuliffe's edict to state the voting rights for over 200,000 felons of all kinds of crimes, including violent crimes, doing it obviously in enough time for them to register for the fall election. So many of us think that it was a politically motivated move. I had Senator Norman on our show. He didn't really see a pathway to stop it. Legally, he said it would be a very difficult task to stop it. They were asking for a special session. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So how do you stop this, and why should it be stopped?
Well, first of all, I think Leader Norman's pretty correct. That's the problem with executive action, is that our founding fathers, when they founded this government in the Commonwealth, and certainly our federal government, expected a leader that would use deference and would be deliberate but not overuse executive authority, because that balance was so precious and also so fragile between the legislative, the judicial, and the executive branch. When the executive branch then expands its power and its overreach, there are few options for the legislature, and there are few options in the judicial to stop legislative or executive overreach. And so we are stopped because he waited 3 days till we're out of session after the reconvene. The only way we come back in is by a vote of 2/3 of the bodies. Well, you may get it over in the House of Delegates because we're one vote short of 2/3 to enact the special legislation that would give us a special session to consider these actions and certainly this legislation. We don't have it in the Senate. And I think ultimately what we see here is this overreach by the governor, quite frankly, was not even vetted through the people of Virginia for their opinions, that it was really an act, a political act, cloaked in, we're doing it's the right things, it's the last vestiges of Jim Crow. Well, there are people of all races who are affected by this legislation, or by this executive action. Certainly, he did not go to the people. I would have suggested if this was the act he wanted to take, then he should have, during the regular session, proposed amending our Constitution to allow automatic restoration, without regard, as he has now done, to whether someone is a nonviolent felon, which certainly I don't think anybody in the Republican Party objects to a process by which that restoration occurs. And also violent felons, sexual predators are now able to hold office, sit on juries, and vote. So I think that should have been something given to the people. But it is tough to stop executive overreach, as we've seen in the federal government, especially when we're hampered from even going back in and trying to let the people's voice be heard on this issue by going into special session. So Senator Norman's right. We're looking into a lawsuit, but you have to have an injury and an injured person in order to have standing. It's what we call in court, so that you have a right to ask the court for redress and achieve that goal. Who is the injured party? Is it the voter whose vote's diluted? I wouldn't say that. Is it the registrar who may be inundated and not know how to process who is worthy of restoration and who has not qualified? So those are issues I think that are being looked at by now by the council we've hired, both the House and Senate have hired, to take a look and see if we can use the judicial branch to stop this or delay this, so that then the people and the representatives can go back into session of the General Assembly and make this determination for all of Virginia, rather than one man making the determination. It reminds me of my father used to say, when I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. That's what Terry McAuliffe has done here.
Sounds like the height of arrogance. But look, as you lay this out for our listeners, Bill, and I want to thank you for that, Senator, because that was as salient and succinct as I've ever heard this argument broke down. But there's really no injured parties. That's why I think Senator Norman was right when, he didn't give this. I mean, he's behind it, but he's also very candid. And he said he didn't give it, as a lawyer, a high propensity for being able to stop it based on what you just said. And as you laid that out, I mean, it's going to be tough for any judge to stop this. Then you've got E.W. Jackson on the other side, who put a statement out basically endorsing this and saying that if Republicans don't start to understand that they have to get on the same page with restoring all voting rights for felons, and it affects 20% of the African-American community in Virginia, he says you're never going to win an election. So you've got that going with you. And it's a very emotional argument, because when I hear the Democrats articulate it, and I was on the conference call with your friend Don McKeechin, who, by the way, is going to be the next congressman representing me, most likely. He's the favorite. And Bobby Scott and others, what they say is, look, this dates back to 1902. It dates back to a Virginia Constitutional Convention convened by the Bird Machine to try to disenfranchise black voters. And then they gave me a stat that was shocking, and I still haven't checked it out, but I don't think they'd make it up. They said this affects 1 out of 5 African Americans in Virginia. That means that what they're saying is 1 out of 5 African Americans in Virginia have a felony conviction. Is that true?
I don't know the numbers myself. I haven't looked at that, but I can tell you that seems a little high. They may be talking about that having a felon in your family, and that may expand the pool that makes it 1 out of 5. I really don't see that. But you know what? There are people of all races that suffer, that make mistakes in life, and suffer the felony conviction. And now we're even seeing in the federal government saying, well, felon is a bad word. You can't call them convicts. We should call them the formerly incarcerated.
Oh, for heaven's
we're
sake.
even getting into political correctness on how we term this. There is nothing here that any Republican says that when you commit a felony, you should not be or try or work to become a good member of society once you've paid your debt to society. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I help people all the time not only try to get their rights back, but also when they come out, try to get on the right track and do the right thing so they can be productive and that their children can be proud of them, even though they've made this mistake. The Republican Party doesn't sit here to harm anyone, whether they be in the African-American community or any other community. We understand that laws are laws and want those laws employed and executed and people to live by the laws. And when they don't, or they make a mistake, that when they come out after serving their debt, that they have an opportunity to be a good citizen. And at the same time, we have an obligation to protect the public. And there's a balance there. And so what we need to do is acknowledge the judicial system, acknowledge the effect, try to get those people so they don't commit crimes after they get out and serve their time because they have no hope, and that we help them reintegrate into the community as good, productive citizens. But at the same time, we have to really protect the community that doesn't commit the crimes. I always say to my clients when they say, well, I'm a felon, I can't vote, I've lost my rights. Well, if that's a deterrent, then that deterrent should keep you from committing the crime, and perhaps it does for some. But, if you don't want to do the time, don't commit the crime, they say. But at the same time, we need to have compassion for those that come out and truly want to be good citizens and make up for the mistakes that they made to society.
No question about it. We're out of time. I want to thank Senator Bill Stanley for being with us. And you can get more info. Go to stanleyforsenate.com. And Senator Ann wanted me to ask you if you're going to be joining us at Joe Morrissey's wedding with your lovely wife, Laura.
You might see me there. I'm going to have to check my calendar. But
right.
Look, you tell her to go get them, and you guys win that election for me, okay?
All right, Senator Stanley, thanks for being with us. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network.